A while back I did a video about singles that I found in Japan that were imported from other countries, and today what I'm going to do is show you a few albums that I've found in Japan that again come from other countries. A little quiz for you before we begin. In which language does Elvis Presley literally mean Cat King? Okay, I'll tell you the answer near the end of the video. The three albums that you can see behind me are examples of albums that I found over here, but I've shown all three of these in other videos, so I'll skip those today. So the first one I've got to show you is a fairly common German compilation. This is Elvis Forever. There were, I think, 5 different volumes of this set, and they were all double albums. And this particular one has 32 hits. You may be familiar with the UK album, Elvis's 40 Greatest. Well, all 32 songs on this album appear on that double album. The inside cover is quite interesting because it has a German LP discography, and there are some albums that were only released in Germany, so there are a few interesting covers on the inside there. I'll show you one of the 2 records. It's on this turquoise RCA International label. Unfortunately, the songs, the 50s songs, are all in fake stereo. The next one I have is an American promo-only album. It's called Selections from the 8-record 25th anniversary album Elvis Presley. And this album contains 16 songs from the box set, and it proceeds in chronological order from the 1956 live performance in Las Vegas right through until a concert appearance in 1975. It also contains an excerpt from the monologue, which took up a full side of the album. I believe that was originally an interview, but they cut out the interviewer's questions. And I also believe they slowed down Elvis's responses so that the recording met the minimum length for one side of an LP. I think it was just over 10 minutes in total. The labels are very similar to the labels used on the 8 LP box set, and it actually says Elvis Presley radio station sampler on the labels, so it has a different title on the labels to what it states on the cover. The next one you can see on my right here has almost exactly the same cover, but whereas the first LP was called Selections from the 8-record LP box set, this one is called Excerpts from Elvis Presley. The photograph on the front and the pictures on the back are all exactly the same. And the difference between this album and the one I just showed is the previous album has full songs, but this one is, as the title suggests, just excerpts from many different songs. And there are around about 20 excerpts from around about 20 songs on each side. It gives you the total time for each side. So side 1 is 17 minutes 41, and side 2 is over 20 minutes. This one also has a different title on the labels. This one reads Elvis Presley sampler on the labels. It's quite an enjoyable listen actually, is this one. The next one is a live album from Holland. It's called Elvis Live in Dallas, June 1975. And this was put out by It's Elvis Time Records. And It's Elvis Time is the Dutch fan club, and I believe they're still in existence. The tracks are all there on the back. However, in very small print at the bottom, it states June 16th, 1975, Memorial Auditorium, Dallas. June 17th, 1975, afternoon show, Hirsch Coliseum, Shreveport. Now, Shreveport is in Louisiana, of course, so not every song was recorded in Dallas. This is a legitimate release. It's on the RCA Special Products label, and It's Elvis Time also put out a couple of other releases. One was Having Fun with Elvis on Stage, and the other one was Our Memories of Elvis Volumes 1 and 2 on one CD. That was before FTD released their version of Our Memories. There may be other releases on It's Elvis Time, but I'm not sure. This is the label. It's Elvis Time Records, RCA Special Products. The only slight problem is the sides are not banded. But the sound quality is very good. It's a soundboard recording, not an audience recording. Just one more album from Holland, and that's this one here, Pictures of Elvis. A great photo there on the front from the TV special. On the back you have a nice picture of a toilet roll. I believe this album was made available through this toilet roll company, Scottex. It's a picture disc, and although it uses the same picture on both sides, you can tell which side is which because it has the letter B on one side and A at the bottom of the other side. The only way you can tell the catalogue number of this album, by the way, is looking at the run-out groups. It's not printed on the cover or on the LP. The songs, the 1950s songs on this album, are all, sadly, again in electronically reprocessed stereo. And although the album is called Pictures of Elvis, ironically, they only use one picture of Elvis, the same one 3 times. It's quite a heavy record, actually. It feels like it, at least as heavy as those 180-gram albums that are so popular these days. No, I was wrong. There's another Dutch album. This one is Golden Film Hits. This is a 28-track 2 LP compilation on the Arcade label, the same company that released the Elvis's 40 Greatest. And it has a very colourful inside cover. It also lists every one of Elvis's 33 movies, including the 2 documentaries. However, not every movie is represented in the track selections. In fact, some movies are represented by more than one track. I think it would have been a more interesting idea if they'd chosen one song from each movie. And once again, this album is an early 80s album, 1983, so the 50s songs are again in fake stereo. The labels look like that, and the logo will be familiar to most people in the UK. Arcade Records still using that same logo that they used in the 70s. The next one is an Italian album from 1982, and this is a copy of Speedway, with a rather striking front cover there, with the illustration of Elvis and Nancy Sinatra. The back cover is the same as the American version. The record itself is a white label promo copy. Another Italian album next. This is a 1981 copy of Elvis's Back, and it's just in the single sleeve, not a gatefold. On the front it reads Re 3 at the bottom, and they've done a fairly ordinary job up here, just above Elvis's name, of covering up the logo from an older cover. The army photographs are all on the inner sleeve. This one too is a white label promo copy. One more album from Italy to show you, and this is actually a copy of Back in Memphis. You can see down here it says Volume 2, so Volume 1 of course was Elvis in Person, and Elvis in Person had the same front cover except the text was slightly different. So at the top here, where it says De Las Vegas a Memphis, on Elvis in Person it said De Memphis a Las Vegas. That's about as good as my Italian gets. Any more difficult than that, I've got no chance. Down here it reads Dal Vivo, which I had to look up, and that means live, which is interesting because of course this is a studio album. And the same error appears at the bottom here of the back cover as well. It's a very well made cover actually, a thick card laminated front. Nice cover. And the album comes in this inner sleeve, which I assume is the correct one for the period, and it also has an advertisement here for the 8-track version of Elvis's Golden Records Volume 3. The labels are the orange RCA labels. You can see 2 stickers there on the side 1 label. They appear to be record shop stickers. On to South America next. This album is by request Volume 2, especially for Brazil. And I assume that this is an album full of tracks chosen by Brazilian fans. The cover is very thin. It doesn't actually have a legible spine. It's kind of like a thick inner sleeve almost. And on the front it's got a sticker saying Made in Brazil, and this circular part down here is actually printed on the cover. It reads, including the stereo version of Easy Come, Easy Go. And that's not just the song, it's actually the whole of the soundtrack. The 6 songs take up the whole of side 2. It really is in stereo, it sounds great. I believe you can get those 6 songs in stereo now on the FTD Easy Come Easy Go LP, but if you want a cheaper alternative, this album's a good bet. On side one you have half a dozen songs that presumably were difficult for people in Brazil to get at the time. This was released in 1981. Unfortunately, the two songs that start side one, Rags to Riches and I'm Leaving, are both in mono. The third song, Long Lonely Highway, is the single version, not the version that was on Kissing Cousins. This album also has orange RCA labels, but the labels read Pure Gold, RCA Pure Gold, not RCA Victor. The next one is a real oddity. I don't know how legitimate this one is, but it's a copy of Gold Records Volume 2. You might be looking at that and thinking that the colours have faded, but I think it's actually just been copied. And if you look on the back cover is in black and white. Also, going back to the front, in the top you can see a greyish circle, and presumably this was a sticker that was stuck to the album that was simply copied. Now you might be wondering where the heck this thing came from, and you have to look fairly closely to find out where it's from. In the bottom at the back you can see that they've attempted to cover up the printed in USA text, and also on the right it says, or said at one point, SER, so stereo reissue. And at the very bottom also here in legible text you can see the country name El Salvador. So this album was actually made in El Salvador. I've never even seen an album from El Salvador before. I'll show you the labels. They look very similar to 1977 American labels. Nipper and the gramophone are a little bit blurred, shall we say, and the text at the bottom of the labels is almost illegible. It could be Spanish, I'm not sure, it's difficult to see. The last album I've got to show you today is from Hong Kong, and here's the cover. It's called 1987, 10 Years After. And that brings us back to the answer to the quiz I said earlier. In which language does Elvis Presley literally mean Cat King? The answer is in Chinese. Here's the back cover. So this is a 19-song compilation. The songs jump around a bit from one era to the next, but the album covers quite a long time period, going from Heartbreak Hotel in 1956 to My Way in 1977. At the top it says International Elvis Presley Fan Club HK. So presumably these songs were chosen by members of the Hong Kong Elvis fan club. Beside the song titles in red, it has some Chinese writing. Now, because there are many Chinese characters in Japanese, some of these characters make sense to me. I can read them. I don't know what the pronunciation is because it's different in Chinese, but some of the Chinese text I can read. So beside each English title, it's actually a summary of the song. It's not the title in Chinese. So for example, for Heartbreak Hotel, it tells you that it was Elvis's first RCA 45 and spent 6 weeks at #1. And for Sentimental Me, it tells you that it was recorded after he left the army. And Promised Land, it says that it's a typical song, a typical Elvis song from the 1970s. And here are the labels. You can see the RCA logo on the left. It has Suspicious Minds on this album, but it's only 3 minutes and 20 seconds, so the song fades out and it doesn't fade back in again like it does on the single. And also this album has Funny How Time Slips Away, and I think it's taken straight from the Elvis Country album because it fades in, and then at the end when it fades out you can just hear a little bit of I Was Born About 10,000 Years Ago. I do have other imported albums that I found here in Japan, but I'm going to save those for another video or other videos. And in the meantime, if you have any interesting albums from countries other than your own, please let me know. I'd be very interested to hear in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Cheers.